Hi, welcome to the Gen X podcast. Gen X Rewind has been on the air now. This is our 10th episode. I'm Evan,
And I'm Brady.
and 10 episodes already, Brady. Wow. It's like that's about as many as a Netflix show.
Yep.
Uh, have you ever noticed that? Like my son and I have watched Leave It to Beaver. And
Okay.
every season for 5 or 6 years of Leave It to Beaver, 36 episodes was a season, right?
Yeah.
And now you put something on Netflix and it's like six, or even like Flip or Flop or something like that on HGTV. 6 episodes for a season, 8 episodes for a season. How is that a season?
I know. It's over before it starts. How far do we have to go before we catch The Simpsons?
Oh my gosh. They're at like episode 2000, I think.
Oh my.
Um, Started in 87, I believe, 87 or 88. So what are they on their 38th year?
Yeah.
Something like that. Just I mean, I've been watching it since college.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, as that's just an amazing run. All of those voice actors who were like in their 20s when they're like 75 years old.
And
You
yeah.
know, it's the female who does Bart Simpson is like 70. It's like it's they have like a 70-year-old woman doing a 10-year-old boy voice. It's
Yeah, that's
like
a bad gig. I could handle that.
there's no better gig in all the world than voiceover. You come
Yeah.
in, you say your lines, you're done. Here's a check for 100 grand, right? It's like
Right.
that's why every once in a while I'll go into my FM radio voice. Just so that maybe somebody listening gives me a job as a voiceover person.
Yeah.
That would be, I actually just, this is totally off track, but that's the show. I actually did, uh, nobody will understand what this is. Local access cable in the 80s. I did sports broadcasting for high school basketball and volleyball
Hmm.
in Minnesota. So
Oh,
I worked at a campus radio station in college and in Minneapolis, and then I would go out Friday nights and do volleyball games and basketball games at local high schools for the local cable access channel.
hmm.
So, and I had I did mostly play by play, but I had another guy with me who was like color commentary and producer, right? Would sit in a van outside the high school and, feed us information. And it was just I think we just had one static cameraman and
Huh.
stuff. But it was kind of fun, right? 10 people probably watched it. But for those of you who don't understand what we're talking about, cable access was when cable TV came in, all of the local channels and everything were afraid that cable TV would completely put them out of business. And so you'd get no local broadcasting, right? You wouldn't get your local news, you wouldn't get anything. So, in an agreement with cable TV, they created an agreement that said that they had to have a cable access channel where local stuff could happen and the people within the local area could get local programming things like local sports or whatever. And so it was always a guy in front of a sheet with a fern, right? It looks exactly like the Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns show. That's exactly every cable access show looked just like that. And it would be some guy talking about something you didn't care about or whatever. But it was kind of fun. And you could get on for like free. They would just take as many people who would deliver a show and put them on, cable channel 700 or whatever it was. It's like, I don't know if that even still exists anymore with podcasting and everything else. There's probably not even a need for it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was, uh, anyway, that was just a little trip down memory lane for myself there. But anyway, for informational purposes, Gen X people are the greatest people in the world. We say this every week. We were born between 1965 and 1980. And now the alphabet is completely cycled over. We went through Gen Alpha and now we're into Gen Beta. So everybody born in 2025 for the next 15 years or so will be Gen Beta, which describes most males in the country. Uh, anyway, we're just two regular Gen X guys. And we just like to talk about stuff. We talk about current events, which we have a lot to talk
Oh,
about today. Holy cow. We do some segments, depending on how much time we spend talking about current events. We talk about them from a Gen X perspective. So not and for clarity's sake, not specifically from a political side of the aisle. We have our opinions about that, but from a Gen X perspective, usually the main guiding principle of Gen X philosophical worldview is what, Brady?
our philosophical view,
Yeah, what's a Gen X philosophical worldview?
you know, I would have to say skepticism is
Yeah,
added in there. You're not
skepticism and common sense, I
you're
think,
right.
are probably the best ways to describe the Gen X mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Not gonna just follow
Uh,
the sheep down the path. Uh, yeah,
Independent, free thinking, don't
right.
tell me what to think. I'll
Yeah,
make up my own mind. Right?
yeah,
We don't put up with a lot of like nonsense, right? Like not a lot of, we don't like that stuff.
right.
Uh, Definitely not PC. Um,
Yeah,
and our conversation is usually PG. So you can listen to it in the car with your family and maybe, your kids can learn something about dad and his life, right? We're both dads. So we also mix that in with that adds color to the things that we say
yeah,
and humility.
right. Yes, that is true.
It's it's a journey. It's a journey. All
Yeah,
right, so my first current event is it's Super Bowl week. I don't know if anybody knows that because the media cycle is completely dominated by politics and some disasters that happened last week, and we'll talk about that. Nobody's talking about the Super Bowl. And one of the reasons for that, as we mentioned on last week, and I added a clip to Instagram specifically about our conversation about that, it's the Super Bowl that no one wanted.
right.
Literally, no one
Yeah,
wanted to see these two teams play each other in the Super Bowl. And in fact, on X over the last 2 weeks, it's been I'm not watching it. That was most of the posts that I saw. I'm not even watching it. I don't care. It's fixed. I don't care about either of these two teams. Mahomes is a flopper. Who cares? It's already been decided who's going to win. I don't want to watch it. I'm tired of it. I'm going to watch the Puppy Bowl. Right? It's like,
Heidi, Heidi's playing.
yeah, Heidi. Hopefully Heidi will interrupt right before overtime of the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Uh I mean, last year at least there was an interesting story in my opinion because Brock Purdy, who was only in his second year of the NFL and was the last pick of the NFL draft, took a team to overtime in the Super Bowl. And that was an interesting story, right? Mahomes versus Hurts. Really, to me, the only interesting story out of this Super Bowl is will Saquon Barkley set the all-time season, both regular season and postseason record for rushing?
right. Yeah,
He's had an amazing year. I think he deserves to be the MVP. Uh, you know, Philadelphia would not be where they are without him. He had an incredible NFC Championship game. He's just been amazing.
yeah,
And it points to the fact that that was probably the worst non-signing that a team has ever done,
right.
right? Is
Uh,
not to re-sign him. The Giants not re-signing him. That's got to be the worst. It's
oh,
funny. I saw a list this week, and it was, hey, these are the the worst or most surprising trades in the history of professional sports. And so they didn't include Saquon Barkley not getting signed because that's a different thing, right? But just this last week, the Mavericks decided to trade arguably the best player in the NBA
Yeah.
for no apparent reason.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a head scratcher for sure.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, my son, who's in high school, said that's what everybody was talking about this
Yeah.
week was that they could not believe Doncic got traded to the Lakers. And in the Phoenix area where we are, that's, the evil empire. We hate the Lakers.
Yeah.
And so I kind of don't want it to succeed.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing,
but Doncic is,
we could have drafted him,
that's the thing. You think about that, right?
you
Oh
know,
my gosh.
Booker and you have him out there.
Can you imagine Booker and Doncic on the same team?
No, that would have been years of success and championships, I'm sure. Uh,
Except DeAndre Ayton, and he's where now? He's like playing in the C League. I don't know. I have no
well,
idea. I don't honestly, I don't even follow the NBA because they don't dribble.
yeah,
It's ridiculous. Like they don't call double dribble or traveling. It's ridiculous,
yeah.
right?
Well, I don't know if you
Um,
today actually there is a trade. So we traded and got Nurkic from Portland. So DeAndre Ayton went to Portland. So that's where he is now, who they just beat the Suns twice. Uh,
oh, of course.
So then we have Nurkic, who we just traded today with one of our first round draft picks to unload him. So that shows you if we have to spend a first round draft pick to trade to get rid of who we could have drafted.
Oh my gosh. It
Uh,
just never ends, right? It's just like one bad decision after another.
yeah.
It's like drafting the Cardinals drafted Levi Brown instead of Adrian Peterson. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that was a genius move, right? And I think it wasn't it in the same draft where where the Cardinals took Josh Rosen, we passed on Lamar Jackson, who got drafted way later. I
yeah.
think that's correct. That was the same draft.
Wow.
Now, here's the thing. People talk about Lamar Jackson being, oh, he's like the MVP of the league. The dude can't win two playoff games in a row.
That's true. Yeah.
And he's not even been to a Super Bowl. And he's 3-5, I think, or something in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, well, what do you make of that, right? It's like,
Yeah. It doesn't look good. And, Josh Allen, I feel bad for him because it's also looking like he can't beat the Chiefs.
yeah, it's like it's Buffalo went from we're good, but we can't beat the Patriots to we're really good, but can't beat the Chiefs, right?
And I think I'm going to pull for the Eagles because I don't want
Yeah.
people comparing Mahomes to Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback.
No,
Um,
yeah, you're right. And I said that last week. It's like that's why the league wants him to win because then he'll have done something that Brady never did, which is which nobody has ever done, win three Super Bowls in a row.
I-
Um, that somehow that makes you the greatest quarterback ever. Yeah, right. When you win eight,
yeah,
then you get to be called the greatest quarterback ever. So we'll see, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think I have my team, even though I could really care less about.
Yeah, it's the Puppy Bowl will be picture in picture. It's like or the last round of the Phoenix Open if it doesn't end by the time the Super Bowl starts, right? By the way, for everybody out there, like watch the Phoenix Open, Golf Channel, CBS over the weekend to see what the weather's like here in Arizona this time of year. It's pretty amazing,
Don't,
right?
we don't want more people moving in here.
That's true. Don't move here though, it's terrible.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
so crowded.
uh, it's crowded. It's getting less crowded by the day, though, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, back to the Super Bowl. What's your prediction then? You're rooting for the Eagles, but what's your if you had to put $1,000 on the game,
Gosh, well,
what are you saying?
I'll take Eagles, and I'll say let's give up what by a touchdown.
Okay.
Yeah, by a touchdown.
Eagles by 6.5.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. I'm saying it's going to be 31-27 Chiefs because I will guarantee that the Chiefs win. So
Yeah.
if you have $100,000, put it on the Chiefs. The league and the referees will make sure that the Chiefs win. I
Unless
don't want that to happen, but
no,
that's what's going to happen.
unless they've been hearing all the chirping in
They
the
want to dispel it.
they want to squelch it, so they might swing the other way, and you never know.
I thought about that for the Bills game, but here's the thing. The only way that it doesn't happen is that one, the Eagles do not turn the ball over at all. Cannot turn it like Super Bowls and playoffs, you cannot turn the ball over,
Right.
right? You're almost guaranteed a loss when you turn the ball over. So Eagles can't turn the ball over. If the Chiefs turn the ball over twice, that's the only if and the Eagles do not turn the ball over, that's the only way the Eagles can win
Yeah.
because there's not a lot the refs can do about that. So that's, two or more turnovers by the Chiefs, then maybe the Eagles can thwart the fixes in thing and get it done. But I don't know. I don't see that really happening.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, by the way, Kelsey was in an interview today, and one of the reporters asked him if he loved Taylor Swift more than 15-yard flopping penalties, which was a great question, right? It's
Yeah.
like they seem to really like those 15-yard flop penalties, so I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Anyway, we shall see. We'll regroup next week and see how our predictions come out. Brady has Eagles by 6.5. I'm going to take the Chiefs by 4,
Okay.
31-27. So,
Yeah.
all right. So speaking of sports, it is week 3 of the new uh, presidential um, replacement, let's call it. And honestly, you can barely keep up with the news.
Yeah.
I mean, the literally, if the only I had Newsmax on a couple times this last week. My mom was in town, so she likes to watch news and stuff. So I had Newsmax on, and we were watching the news, and I mean, they do a good job of talking about certain stories and whatever, but they're already like 4 or 6 hours behind everything. By the
Yeah.
time they have a chance to like process what just happened and write up some copy about it and stuff, we're already on to the next thing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So everybody out there, if you're not on X, it's literally the only place to get news as it happens kind of stuff, right? Because everybody else is worried about, because here's what news does, like TV news, they get the news, then they got to write copy because, anchors aren't like us, Brady, who can talk extemporaneously,
Right.
right? They got to write it down, right? Ron Burgundy-esque, right? Like I'm Ron Burgundy. They got to write it down. And by that time, it's already old news, right? It's amazing. So just having your feed refresh on X gives you up to the minute information. But so, lots to cover there. But speaking of sports, today the president signed an executive order banning males, from participating in female sports at all levels,
Right. Yeah.
which was, listen, this is a very popular opinion. It's like an 80-20 split
Right.
of people in America who 80% of the people in America do not want males in female sports, right? So if you're the 20%, you're in the minority and you're cuckoo
Yeah.
to think that men should be competing in women's sports. And he signed that. And then I just saw, as a reaction to that, because the president tends to set trends, right? Like he sets an agenda, and then companies and organizations want to stay in the good with the new administration, and so they often follow suit, right? And the NCAA has banned men today also from women's sports.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So no 6'6", 210-pound swimmers in women's sports, or Usain Bolt can't compete in women's track and field.
Yeah.
Um, it's a great thing, and I hope it is actually law and gets written and clarified in Title IX. Obama took Title IX and completely bastardized it to say that men should compete in women's sports and did all sorts of verbal jockeying to try to make that case. But we're over that, right? And girls deserve a place to compete fairly against other girls, period. Right?
Yeah. Common sense.
It's common. This is it. It's common sense.
How many, you think of how many people are you really affecting by doing that? It's like the people that are protesting and all upset and everything. Look at the numbers as to, I mean, it's so ridiculous that they would make so much of that. It
Yeah,
just seems,
it's 0.01%, right? And
yeah,
it's just to cheat girls who've competed their whole lives and worked to get to where they are, and to
yeah,
cheat them out of those awards. Honestly, I think it should be retroactive. That you should go back and you should strip every single medal and award from pretend girls and give it to the person who finished second, right?
yeah,
And it doesn't give them back the honor of standing on the platform and all of that stuff, but it at least would attempt to make things right.
yeah,
Um, it's just so, it was great. A lot of teams, I think it was in the WAC conference, refused to play. I forget what school it was, a California school who had a man playing on the girls volleyball team.
mm,
And a lot of other schools in the conference refused. Female volleyball teams forfeited their games rather than submit their female athletes to potential physical harm from having a man spike a ball in their face, right?
right.
Um,
Yeah, you think about with baseball, how with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and these guys that are pumping steroids, it's almost like that creates an unfair advantage that's
yeah,
not tolerated at all. But you can create that same unfair advantage by just saying, you're a woman when you're a man, and it's accepted because now you've sailed into the
because
liberal.
there's some sort of a political position
Yeah,
attached to it, right? For some stupid reason, right? That's all. That's all that's about.
yeah, yes,
I'm just super happy about that. And if you don't like me saying that, too bad, because 80% of the people around you think that this is a good idea, right?
yeah.
And it's common sense, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah,
How could you be against this? And yet there was a vote in Congress at some point, and 200 Democrats voted against it.
yeah.
How? They don't even listen to their own people because 80% of the country doesn't want that.
Yeah, they still haven't gotten it yet. And, I think there's so much money when you see all this investigation going into where our tax dollars are going. There's so much money and power that have just been flushed, billions and billions flushed
Yeah.
by our government year after year. It's sickening, but it's also rewarding and so sweet just to see it all coming back.
And
To
that leads us to the next current event thing, is this USAID scandal, money laundering, corruption, fraud scheme
yeah,
that was uncovered this week by the Department of Government Efficiency, where I- the it's incomprehensible. Here's the strange thing. A lot of us knew that it was happening somehow, right? Like, how do these politicians become multimillionaires on $170,000 a year salaries,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, where does all this money, and their kids are, you know, how did Chelsea Clinton become a hundred millionaire?
Yeah.
What has she ever done to earn or deserve that money?
Yeah.
Nothing. Zero. Nada. So
Yeah.
obviously something was in place to enable that. And so it was discovered this week. And, it's like, I got news for everybody. These are facts. This isn't a conspiracy theory.
Right.
This isn't Alex Jones making it up or something. Sorry for everybody out there. This is the reality. We have been living probably for the past 60 years in a completely corrupt governmental fraud scheme, money laundering scheme of your tax dollars and my tax dollars, uh, just going to propaganda and to make certain political people and their friends rich
Yeah.
off of our tax dollars. So here's one that I read today, and Elon Musk actually commented on it too. But according to the Columbia Journalism Review, USAID supported 6,200 journalists, 707 news outlets, and 279 media sector civil society organizations in 30 different countries.
Mm.
In other words, your tax dollars are paying for media outlets to propagandize you with liberal talking points day after day after day.
Mm.
You're paying to be manipulated. That's what that tells you. The most obvious one was the news service Politico, which received $8 million plus from USAID, and they couldn't make their payroll this week when it got shut off.
Wow.
So it's a non-solvent media group. They don't make any profits. The only way they survive is from your tax dollars being funneled through, multiple different organizations and NGOs and charities and everything else to bolster them with specific talking points of attack Trump, attack conservatives, attack Christians, attack white people. Every single thing that you can think of that comes out of Politico for how many years, we don't know, has been a complete fraud. It's absolute government manipulation of media, interfering in elections by skewing their reporting, whatnot. But here, that's just half of it. They got $8 million directly from USAID. The other thing is they set up a scam where they would charge, I think it was 10,000 or 12,000 or whatever dollars a month to their premium subscribers for extra services. Now, if you know anything, this is my world. If you know anything about web stuff, you set something up and it just runs itself. It doesn't cost you anything, right? It's called a portal or a pay gate, gated content, right? And people set up gated content and then charge you extra for it, right? So they set up a gated content area, which is nothing essentially of real value, and then charge $10,000 a month for it. Now, who's going to pay $10,000 a month for that extra great information?
Mm.
Nobody. Well, funny enough, almost every semi-legitimate government organization was buying hundreds of these subscriptions
Mm.
to the tune of over $35 million in bogus subscriptions. That was just another way to legitimately fund Politico. They
Yeah.
literally have no real subscribers, no real audience whatsoever. They are completely propped up by your tax dollars, one way or another, through USAID or through like NASA was buying all these. What do they need this for?
Yeah.
Right? It's just a way to launder money and manipulate whatever Politico says. Now, same with Reuters. Reuters had a thing where they received millions of dollars, and the line item in the article, I've got it right here. They received $517,000. This is no, that was Politico. It was Reuters, and they received $1 million, millions of dollars to create uh, what did they call it? It was something like deceptive social engineering. That's literally the line item, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
your
crazy.
tax dollars through the government pays Reuters to manipulate you with false stories.
Yeah.
And you're just gaslit day after day after day with Reuters news stories. Now, there's one other thing I got to mention about this. This is a side note to this. I don't think a lot of Gen X people in general fall for that type of manipulation for the most part, because like we said at the start, like you said, you know, we we're fairly free thinkers and, we don't want to be told what to think and we're common sense people and everything. But there was a research study done that showed that females, by a large majority, are much more concerned about what the group thinks and makes their decisions about what truth is based on what the group is, what the group says,
Hmm.
right? So if a group of their friends say something, they most likely, whether they 100% believe it or not, they will accept that as the truth because they feel there will be consequences to them socially for going against what the group says,
Hmm.
which and it's starkly different in terms of men and how men are influenced by groupthink. Men are much less likely to be influenced by groupthink than females. This isn't me saying it, people. You can, shut off your computers and stomp away and say, that's not right. The other argument against such thing will be anecdotal. Well, I'm not like that. I'm not saying that every single female fits into that category, right? This is an argument used by people all the time. Well, I'm not that way, or I know somebody who's not like that, to try to undercut the fact that 99% of people are, right? The exception proves the rule in this case. This is the majority of people in that particular group, female or male, act a certain way. Not every single one, but that's how the majority are. And if you look at yourself honestly, you can admit that this is probably true. There's more social influence. So, especially younger females are more prone to this type of media manipulation
Hmm. I see.
because they hear it every day on the news or in their social media stream or, in their Instagram feed and from their friends at work who stand around and talk about these things. Well, I guess they're saying it. I guess I'll believe it. I guess it's easier for me to just accept that and go with that rather than try to defend a position
You know, it kind of
outside of that.
it kind of has gone full circle because for the longest time, everybody, even the baby boomers, were used to the news being factual and what they're hearing is valid, and you take it at face value. And then, and then you had such skepticism, of course, with Vietnam, but you had such skepticism that surfaced through our generation, and now it seems like it's kind of feeding back to where you've got a large group of Gen Zers and such, kind of going back to that original where they just accept what they hear as fact and go with it because it must be true if it's on the TV. It's on the news. It's, it's a journalist who's saying this. So surely they must be held to strict standards. And, you can kind of see how it's going around in full circle. Um, but yeah, it's it's really fun in a way to see this come to light. I mean, it's a
Oh
miracle
boy.
that light is being shined on all of
Yeah.
these dark alleys that have been, yeah. And what that means for, your average American who might not realize how much that impacts them, not only that you are being manipulated to think a certain way, but also all your hard-earned money that's just being taxed. $20 million dollars going to fund Sesame Street in Baghdad.
Yeah.
You know, are you okay with paying higher taxes so that kids in Baghdad can watch Sesame Street?
Yeah.
Uh, these are the types of things that you might not think, oh, this is stupid. It's no big deal. How does it affect me? Well, that those big heavy duty taxes that we're still paying directly go to all funding all these, multi millionaires in Washington that have been milking this for years. So, yeah,
Yeah,
very.
and it's like this what the scam like how the scam works. I was like my wife and I went on a walk with the dogs yesterday and I was, I'm paying attention to all these stories and how USAID worked was, okay, so I'm a politician in Washington and let's say you're my friend, Brady, and you're not in politics, but you're my friend and I say, "Hey, I got this idea. If you propose and start up a non-governmental organization, an NGO or a charity to establish a Sesame Street program in Iraq, I will get it funded
Mm,
as a government, a person in government. I will see that this gets funded through US aid, which doesn't, by the way, everybody, it doesn't require Congress to decide to fund it. It's an executive branch. It is not a organization that essentially has oversight by Congress. It is funded through weird circumstances. It was created by Kennedy through executive order, so it is not a legitimate government entity from that standpoint, right? It's just a slush fund of money. So Brady, with a wink, wink, says, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So, what you do then is you set up the proposal and you give it back to me, and then I take it to wherever I need to take it to get it funded. And then what's the ask? $20 million. And then you hire your buddies as executives of this NGO and you pay them $500,000, right? And you go over to Iraq and you say to the leadership in Iraq, "Hey, we want to do this for you. Will you allow us and provide us sort of cover for this service that we want to provide your country?" Well, why would we want to do that? Because we'll kick back 2 million to you out of
mm,
that money to however you want to call that, right? You know, licensing for this show in your country or whatever. Oh, that sounds great. I get a free $2 million for doing nothing, right? Okay, great. Then I do nothing. Your company does nothing, right? They don't actually produce this or do anything with it, or they marginally do it. You pay off a bunch of actors. And then all those people, as part of that, the way you pay back me as the politician is you donate to my campaigns out of
mm,
the salary that I got you from US aid. So now you are paying me back in sort of a legitimate way, supporting my campaign, but probably also in illegitimate ways too, by pigeonholing this money in some Cayman Island account that I have as well. So I pay you 500,000, you give me 100,000 back,
mm.
right? And then you donate to my campaign, and then you run this ridiculous thing that does nothing ever and never helps anybody. and you
Yeah.
make sure that it doesn't get discovered in Iraq because you've paid off the government out of this slush fund that I got you the money for. And no one ever knows about it. No one ever knows what they did, and no one is ever accountable for it. Now multiply that times 10,000 of these, right? I
Yeah.
saw it was, what was it, 2 million, 6 million uh, to further atheism in Nepal. The federal government was funding an NGO to further atheism in Nepal,
Yeah.
right? And 37 million uh, in uh, AIDS prevention education or something in South Africa. Now, what costs 37 million to tell people not to have unprotected sex? Why does that cost 37 million dollars to tell people that? And oh, by the way, we all knew that 40 years ago,
Right.
right? Like this isn't rocket science. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's just make something up that sounds, tugs at some idiot's heartstrings somewhere or whatever. Sure, throw 20 million at it. Sure, throw 50 million at it. And you just multiply that in the thousands. And
Yeah.
that's your tax dollars. Now, here's the thing of all of this. The USAID part of the budget is relatively small compared to many of the other organizations that are going to get audited by Doge. And we're going to find out Medicare, Department of Defense, you name it, labor. I saw that they were auditing NOAA, right? The National Oceanographic and whatever, who's got all these green, global warming stuff.
Mhm.
And the new secretary for that area came out and said, yeah, it's all a scam. It's just a money laundering scheme to take your tax dollars and disperse it to people,
Yeah.
right? That's what, and we had that suspicion that this is what that was all about. And I saw a post on X, and it really caught my eye because it says, what we're finding out in real time is that the entire modern left is just completely smoke and mirrors.
Hmm.
None of it is organic, none of it's real. It's just a big money laundering scheme. There is no left wing voter base. All the elections are rigged and fake. They've all been paid through this slush fund to create this fake interest. You got 6,000 media entities that are paid to say exactly what they want you to say. So everyone thinks that must be the popular view, right? Back to what we were talking about. I
Yeah.
guess I shouldn't go against that because every media that I watch, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, they're all Politico. They're all saying the same thing. You know why they're all saying the same thing? They got paid to say what they're saying.
Yeah. And that's true. And to think who was the governor of New Jersey that was thrown in prison because he was on Rogan recently. Um,
Oh, right. It's
what's his,
not Tom Jonovich, but it's something like that. I forget what his name was. You're right.
uh, yeah, but anyways, it was really interesting listening how not only are they doing all these things in the dark and in the shadows behind everyone's back, but they're also the power that, I mean, they were so manipulative and just showing how if you're not marching in line with them, they're willing to throw you in prison and let you rot there. And they gave him more than 10 years just so that they could throw him in a maximum security where he's in with, the real serious criminals and just let him rot there until he was pardoned. It really opened my eyes to, wow, the amount of arrogance that it takes to not only do the things that they're doing, but just the amazing. Yeah, gosh, I don't even know what you would call that. That to take people that get in the way or stand in the way or don't march in line, to just throw them in prison like they're, it's evil.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, I mean, this whole lawfare thing against anybody who supported Trump, right? Debanking people, this outrage against Elon Musk. They're not outraged that your tax dollars are being stolen and misspent and wasted. No, they're mad at the guy who discovered that and told you about it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Now, what does it tell you about somebody who's mad that we discovered the fraud? If you're really mad that we discovered the fraud, what might be the reason
yeah, right,
that you're
right.
mad that we discovered the fraud? It's because that's how you got paid,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
everybody who's out protesting this, every senator, congressperson, mayor, politician, uh, celebrity, whatever, foreign government, whatever, who's mad about us discovering this fraud, you know why they're mad. It's
yeah,
because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar and they've been on the take. And and I mean, listen, folks, this isn't a left or right issue either. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is corruption all the way through everybody,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh, I saw the magazine, which is now ill-named Christianity Today, took $2.5 million from
Mhm.
USAID. And essentially, what they were paid to do was soft pedal abortion, say things like Trump will be a dictator. Maybe we should listen more to Kamala Harris. Literally, a Christian magazine paid to say things like that,
Wow.
right? It's unbelievable. And that, I mean, that's just one example. There are tons. And oh, by the way, we were paying for the BBC to also propagandize us.
Yeah,
That's the British public broadcast. Why are we paying the British to lie to Americans?
right.
I mean, what kind of absolute crazy?
Yeah,
Listen, folks, if you're a Democrat and you are out there right now and you're mad that this corruption has been found, can you just take a minute and think about what you just believe, right? You wish your tax dollars would continue to be wasted on things so that you could be lied to.
Hmm.
Like this is not, I'm not just making that up. That's the reality of the world that we live in. And it's not just USAID, it's going to be every department of the US government, right?
Yeah,
It's all a big get rich scheme for politicians and their friends. And you can't ignore that anymore. That's the reality of it. And
sure.
honestly, most people are saying, I want a tax refund, like right now, right? Uh, if we could cut $1 trillion out of the deficit, what Trump should do is come out after this kind of works itself out, right? And it's moving incredibly fast, right? Like just the speed at which all this stuff is happening is so impressive. But maybe we get to June or July of this year, and most of the big government organizations have been audited, and we find this waste for the administration to come out and say it's a tax-free holiday for the next year just to make it up to you.
Hmm.
And then after that, we're lowering taxes to everybody because now we don't need to spend all this money because it's a waste and it was just used to manipulate you, right?
Well, here's the thing. Here's what'll happen with that. And I can see it now as clear as Isabel. You're gonna have you're gonna have your Schumer and and all these people saying he's doing away with taxes, the poor, the indigent, they're all gonna be suffering, and we're all gonna be crushed. And you're gonna have the entire population is gonna continue to say, you know, go away, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing. So, and what's interesting about all of this is it's like politicos, like if they can't pay their employees, it dies,
yeah,
right? Like this whole fraud scheme crumbles like a house of cards, and it won't be just them. It'll be tons of uh, social media influencers. Where do you think they get their money?
yeah,
Right? Where do you think they get they're being paid by USAID, right? Through multiple shell charities and yada yada yada, right? It's all BS. It's all fraudulent. When you don't have the money to pay protesters and to pay social media influencers and to pay major news outlets to spin your stuff, it all falls apart,
yeah,
right? Because common sense people in America, like the 80% who are not for men in women's sports, that holds true then for every other issue, probably. It's probably 80-20 on almost all of these things. But we've been gaslit through our own tax dollars for 60 years,
right,
right? Like literally probably has been going on for 60 years at least.
yeah, yeah,
And so it's funny because you can sense it, right? Nobody listens to Chuck Schumer or Hillary or anybody. They're not, everyone just laughs
yeah,
now when they talk. It's like, you know, you've been proven to be just a money grubbing
yeah,
fraud.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it falls apart.
Yeah, and, I think a good Gen Xer, whether you're Republican or Democrat, just any Gen Xer out there takes a step back and says, okay, so what if things didn't change? Let's say that you've got 4 more years of Biden. Biden wins again. We got 4 more years. The direction things were going, what we've learned now, anyways, uh, not only are wars, there's more wars happening because we're not taken seriously. You had complete open borders. So fentanyl, the number of fentanyl deaths, I was
Yeah.
pretty blown away when I learned that, you're talking hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
fentanyl deaths on our soil because we just have open borders for whatever reason. You take a step back and you think, well, I'm not any safer. In fact, my safety is declining as
Yep.
crime in our cities. My Everything is costing more and more and more, gas, everything across the board. I'm looking at this direction and I'm thinking, I don't care who it is, if it's Republican or Democrat. It's like things have got to radically change. And I think that people have finally gotten to that point where they're willing to say, yeah, let's forget about the parties and take a step back and look at, just the direction in general.
Yeah. Because think about it. Like it was, when was it signed? A couple of weeks ago, the Lake and Riley Act, right? Which is if you're an illegal alien here and you commit a felony, you get sent back. You don't get to live it up in our prison and stay here and yada yada yada. It's like if you're accused of a felony, you're gone, right? And 153 Democrats voted against doing that. They'd
Yeah,
rather keep felons who rape and murder Americans, they'd rather support them staying in our country than protect their own citizens.
yeah,
I mean, what kind of how can you argue for that? What person in their right mind says, yeah, I'd rather keep those people here and
yeah.
not deport them?
Bizarre.
It's
It's bizarre.
bizarre.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that this has been enacted. This is the law of the land.
Right.
This is great. And then you have these mayors and governors and stuff. Well, I'm gonna resist ICE deporting people. We're gonna resist it in our sanctuary city or whatever. It's like, well, then you better lawyer up because that's a felony. That's a
Yeah.
federal offense
Yeah.
to harbor or protect a known person who is an illegal alien. That
Yeah.
is a federal crime. And here's the other thing, Brady, and I mentioned it And I did see that some lawsuits had been filed today with Pam Bondi, the new attorney general, filed some lawsuits in Chicago for officials who were trying to protect illegal aliens. It's not just the I'm harboring them, I'm protecting them, I'm telling them that ICE is coming so that they can hide. It's more than that. So here's the thing. When you talk about it with your other city council members or your friends and decide to this is what we're going to say, and you produce uh, a post on social media, or you send out a letter saying we're not going to do this, that's conspiracy to commit a federal crime. When two or more people plan to commit a crime, which harboring an illegal alien is, that's now conspiracy to commit a federal crime, which also carries a 5-year sentence
Yeah.
possibility, right? So it's not just, because they'll get away with it. They'll say, well, I was just talking about it. And then when it actually went down, we didn't actually, physically stop the ICE agents,
Yeah.
whatever. Too late. You've already committed conspiracy to commit a crime, right? And they played by that game. This is how the game worked. It's why Martha Stewart was in prison. It's because she lied to the FBI, so they say, about a crime she didn't actually commit, but they think she lied about that crime that she did commit. So
Yeah.
they convicted her of that, right? Or she talked about doing this and then never did. That's conspiracy to commit. So they get you on that, even though you never committed the crime,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
all these people, sheriff in Iowa saying the same thing, the cartel governor of Arizona saying the same thing. You wrote it down. That's conspiracy to commit already. You've already committed a crime. You planned to commit a crime.
Yeah. And
It's as easy as that, right?
how about your thoughts on watching Gavin Newsom, crawling to the White House asking for money or support for California? I mean, has there ever been a politician that has more egg on their face
Oh my gosh.
for being so outspoken about just being so anti-Trump and making fun of him and
Then he has
you
to come and grovel in the White House. That had to have been a satisfying moment for Trump, right? To say,
yeah,
oh, look who came crawling back to me,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And man, I guarantee there were all sorts of stipulations like, sure, I'll give you $250 million. Here's what you got to do,
right,
right?
right, yeah,
Um, and that is, number one on the list is deport every illegal alien in your state. Provide no benefits to any illegal alien in your state, right?
yeah.
I guarantee you those were the stipulations,
Oh, I'm
right?
sure you get a list. Yeah, I just think, the poor people of California, it just shows you what poor policies
Yeah.
and leadership, what that gets you. You got to make sure that you're not just,
I have a feeling that some of them now, after the fires and everything else, have woken up,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And seeing all this government waste and everything else, it feels as if that I feel like some people may have finally woken up to like,
yeah,
you know, I, I got rich people don't like being taxed either,
yeah,
right? So like this is a universal thing. Like you're not winning any election by promoting taxes,
right,
right? This is not how you get anybody's vote by saying I'm going to raise your taxes, right? And
yeah,
it's funny about that. So it came out this week too. CBS got sued by Trump for what was it like 2 billion, 10 billion something for editing their 60 minutes interview with Kamala Harris before the election, right? It was
yeah,
obviously edited. They sat down for 54 minutes and 20 minutes was aired.
mm,
So Trump's like, what was the other 35 plus minutes, right? And oh, by the way, we think you completely edited her answer to another question into an answer for another question to make it seem like she knew what she was talking about.
Wow.
So that was published this week, and I skimmed. I mean, who can listen to that? It's unwatchable, right? Most of it. It's word salad like you would never. I mean, you thought it was bad. The edited version was a word salad. This is not somebody who knows what they're talking about. That 54 minutes is the most deer in the headlights. I have no idea what I'm talking about interview you've ever seen, and they literally edited out all sorts of stuff. And one of those was she was asked, well, you want to do this and that. How are you going to pay for that? And there was hemming and hawing for forever. And then ultimately it was, well, we're going to raise taxes. That's my solution, to raise everybody's taxes. Knowing what we now know about how our money is wasted,
Yeah.
right? The idea that a politician comes and says, no, we want more money to give you more worthless crap,
Unreal.
right? It's
Yeah.
unreal. And so there's a good reason they edited that part out of her saying, no, I'm going to raise your taxes. They edited that out,
Yeah.
right? Because anybody, even people in California, see that and they're like, no, forget it. I'm not getting my taxes raised. It's like I already paid 9.5% state tax
Yeah.
on top of federal and FICA and everything else.
And didn't they just pay it instead of turning over?
No,
Uh,
so they released the tape, which was part of it, and the transcript. It's a negotiating tactic, right? They're trying to say, "Oh, look, we're playing nice now." But the whole point is you know, too late. The
yeah.
damage was done when you manipulated that interview and edited it and affected the outcome of an election on
Right.
purpose, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying, no way should Trump settle. He doesn't need the money. It's not about that. It's about it never happening again. It's
Right.
about news organizations realizing you can't do that. And this isn't Democrat or Republican issue either. This is stop doing that with everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Accountability. Just accountability. That's
Run it,
that's
run the tape. Have it be fair play, right? Let's hear what somebody has to say in its entirety. And if they can't answer a question, too bad, so sad, right?
yeah.
Um, that was, I mean, that whole thing was crazy as well, right? And it's just more kind of media manipulation.
yeah.
There was another news story. I don't know if anybody heard it last week. There was two plane crashes
Uh-huh.
after 12 years of there not being plane crashes, and very sad. The first one was that was I think a week ago yesterday. The Army helicopter running into the passenger plane at Reagan National in DC. I have flown into that airport multiple times when I worked for a company just outside of DC. I've flown into Reagan National, and it's a weird experience flying there because they won't let you stand up a half an hour before you land. That's how tight security is at Reagan National. So
Hmm.
they come on the air. We're a half an hour from Reagan National Airport. Everyone must stay seated and buckled in for the remainder of the flight, right? Like that's the rule. You can't get up. So no monkey business. It should be the most secure airport in the country. And in a lot of ways, it is because of things like that. It's a weird airport to land at because often you make a really steep bank to come around and land at a certain angle. It's very strange. And the airplane tilts and you're right over the Pentagon or the Washington Monument or whatever. It feels like you could look right at it
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Depending on what angle you come in. It's very sort of surreal, right? Um, and just a regular plane coming in for a landing and a helicopter runs right into it, just
Hmm.
straight into it. And, we find out the helicopter was almost twice the legal limit for what its ceiling was. They're supposed to stay under 200 feet. It was nearly 400 feet. It was as much as a mile out of its path that it was supposed to be on as well. And it was warned twice by the air traffic controller that there was traffic and do you see it? And the air traffic controller was receiving a warning on his panel of a potential collision and asked the pilot if they saw the traffic. And the pilot said, yeah, we see it and we're just going to keep an eye on it and stuff. And they ran straight into it.
Hmm.
And 67 people died. And then we find out, well, two of the pilots on the plane we were given their names, two uh, men on the helicopter, but the third pilot's name was withheld for a couple of days.
Hmm.
And there was questions about, why is that? Why is this other name being withheld? And there was all sorts of excuses about it and everything else. And I get it if you just said, well, we want to make sure that everybody's notified and we've recovered their bodies and stuff, and we're going to hold all three names. But why were two names released and one name was not released? And then we come to find out it was a female pilot. And the female pilot had worked in the Biden administration
Hmm.
for a couple of years. She was a social assistant or something or whatever in the White House for Biden.
Hmm.
And all of her social media was scrubbed, but there was a few photos of her attending an LGB. No, we don't have to go beyond that anymore. All federal agencies now will only refer to L, G, and B. They took off all the other letters. So,
Good.
um, so the suspicion is that she had probably said bad things about Trump on her social media at some point, having worked for Biden and everything else. And they wanted to scrub that so that, you know, there wouldn't be suspicion that there was something else afoot here.
Hmm.
We don't know, and we won't know until the NTSB comes out with their final report. A lot of people speculating it looked like the helicopter was intentionally just rammed right into the plane. It
Hmm.
made no evasive maneuvers, did not acknowledge the tower warning, was out of its flight path, and was 200 feet too high.
Hmm.
This is like one of the most advanced helicopters in the world, a Black Hawk, right? A modern Black Hawk. All sorts of warning systems and security systems and everything else. And these are two moving objects coming at each other perpendicular. You know how hard it is to hit a moving airplane with another moving object, right? The odds of that happening accidentally seem astronomical, right?
It seems odd for the military to be having helicopters kind of in
Yes.
a
That's what everybody says. Why are helicopters flying right
yeah,
at the end of a runway of a public airport, especially one in DC?
yeah,
What? Why?
one of the busiest airports probably in the
Why
whole
would you be doing that? Why would that even no matter what the safety things were, that just seems fraught with and 24 hours before that, another commercial airline had to do a go around and they said to the tower, we're doing a go around. And so they did the go around. And then after a few moments, the air traffic controller came back on and said, what was the reason for the go around? They said helicopter traffic.
Hmm.
So there was a helicopter that they didn't like where they were. And
Yeah.
so they aborted their approach and went around, right? Like,
Huh.
this
Yeah.
is nuts. The last thing you want to have is people, helicopters flying in front of a runway for crying out
Right.
loud. It's like,
Right. I was always worried about birds. Now I got to think,
yeah, the birds. It's right.
oh,
And that's the thing too, when you land, you come in right over the Potomac. So the bird strike thing is a little bit scary too, right there. Anytime where you're coming in over water,
yeah.
it's a little freaky. Like when you land in Hawaii and the airport is like practically on the beach, it's like it seems like that might be fraught with problems in terms of birds.
Yeah.
But so, and then the other one was a weird crash in Philadelphia, this Mexican air ambulance plane for no reason, just full speed dove right into the ground.
Yeah. That was odd.
Very odd. It was up for like 30 seconds. Um, I saw a couple of different analysis of that and said, it seems like maybe the rudder completely broke off the plane or something to cause it to just, I mean, it just full speed went right into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Eh,
And there's very few things that could cause a plane to actually do that, right? Like a bird strike would take out an engine, it wouldn't immediately crash your plane, right? We saw that the miracle on the Hudson, right? The plane did a glide for 2 minutes and then landed on the water, right? That's what happens in a bird strike.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, man, the NTSB's got their hands full. They got two uh, air accidents in, the
Yeah.
span of a couple of days.
A lot of questions. I'm sure they're
A
going to be.
lot of questions. The good news is I feel like now with a new transportation secretary and a new administration, I think eventually we'll get to the truth,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And
I,
that's what people want.
yeah. I've got a theory on, everything going on right now. I can kind of see what Trump's plan is because, he announces he's doing a 25% tariff on Mexico,
Right.
25% tariff on Canada, 10% on China. But looking back, it's just a ploy to pull them to the table because now
Yep.
he's got 10,000 soldiers from Mexico. They're firming up their side of the border, which will only help. And then you've got Canada, where I didn't know that there was that much fentanyl coming through the north on the north.
Yeah.
Tremendous. They're going to have a border czar and all this that they're doing on their end. So that alone, just the bargaining chip of a tariff has brought them to the table. Now with this whole Gaza Strip,
Yeah. Same thing with that, right?
all that's going to do, and mark my words, we have no desire to
No.
to go to Gaza and own that and put Americans, between the whole
Right.
Israel-Palestinian, centuries long feud. But all that's going to do is it's going to, okay, you've got the Middle East. They're going to be saying, Hamas, release the prisoners. We don't want America here.
Yep.
Let them
Yeah.
go. And then, yes, we'll sign whatever peace agreement there is. Good, we're done. We'll be good. We'll be good. And then, boom, he's there looking like a genius. We're
Yep.
not Gaza. I'm sure he has no intention of that. So I can kind of see how he's getting the world to do his bidding by
Yep.
negotiating these things, which is
It's
really
a,
genius.
it's why it's great to have business people like Musk and like Trump running the US business,
Yeah,
right? Which it is. Get out of the politics side of it. Politics is corrupt.
yeah,
Politics is terrible. If you want to get something done, you get a business person, right? It's like, so I work in web development, right? And I have web developers and things that I've worked with in the past in marketing. And what I try to teach them is, but think like a business person, right? Like programming geeks sit in a dark corner with their black t-shirt on and their headphones. I can say this, I was one of them. And, I just do whatever comes my way, right? Like I don't care, right? That's not a way to advance your career. Do that stuff, but think like a business person. So you provide value to the organization
right.
from, hey, we're doing it this way, but that doesn't make sense from a programming standpoint. Let's do it this other way. Musk hired genius programmers to be part of Doge, to be part of X, for SpaceX, for Tesla, all of that. And then from a business sense, what makes sense from a business sense? How can we make this better, more efficient, whatever else? That's how to think, right?
Right.
Trump comes to the table, he takes an extreme position and he takes it confidently. And I believe he would back it up, and they believe he would back it up if push came to shove,
That's,
right?
yeah.
But they are afraid that he'll do it. And so I mean, Mexico rolled over in like less than 24 hours,
Yeah.
right? I mean, from him saying, okay, starting February 1st, 25% tariff. And I mean, they rolled over like that, Canada took like an extra day because they're not as fast thinking up there. Their brains are frozen. And then, you got all these apologists going out there and saying, well, I hope you don't mind paying extra for your maple syrup
Oh,
and your
your guacamole.
hey, have you heard of Vermont,
Yeah.
right? Which is in America.
Yeah.
They also make maple syrup. Wouldn't it be better for Americans to actually, by the way, the maple syrup that we do get is already got like a 200% tariff on it from Canada, by the way, in case you didn't know that. So
Yeah.
we're already paying twice, three times the amount that it costs them to produce it just to buy it here. Why don't you buy maple syrup that's made in Vermont from America, right? Same
Yeah.
thing, Colombia. Hey, if you're not going to take back your own people, whatever. Colombia rolled over, sent their own plane to take them back. And then the apologists, especially Democrat politicians out there, I hope you don't mind paying more for your coffee and your cut flowers. We talked about this last.
Yeah.
The best coffee in America is made in America. It's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's Kona coffee.
Yeah.
So this is no problem. I can do without maple syrup from Canada. Thank you very much. And like you said, was it Schumer who went out and said, well, I hope Americans don't mind paying more for their Corona and their avocados and their guacamole come Super Bowl.
That,
Did they really think that we're that shallow?
yeah.
That oh, we'd prefer to have all sorts of criminal illegal aliens but give us cheap guacamole I got news for them. First of all, no American within their right mind drinks Corona to start with, and there are better beers made in America. If you want a really good beer, go to Germany for one. Like buy a German beer over an American beer, definitely over a Mexican beer. And by the way, one of the better beers in Mexico is Dos Equis. Guess who invented it and started the brewery and everything there in Mexico? Germans
Yeah.
actually started Dos Equis. So if you're drinking Dos Equis, that's a German beer. And the other thing is, a lot of those are bottled here in America anyway. Like if you ever look at a bottle of a foreign beer, bottled in New Jersey,
Yeah.
right? It's not, I mean, it's the recipe from
Yeah.
wherever and they make it here anyway, right?
Just, I mean, if we get rid of the corruption and we can get self-sufficient with oil drilling and
Oil.
the Keystone Pipeline, we have California for avocados and
Yeah, it's like whatever happened. Do you not know that they grow avocados in California and lemons and limes grow in Hawaii and coconuts?
yeah.
It's like there's very little in the world that we don't make here.
Yeah, like
And the reason we don't buy it here is because we have bad deals with foreign companies who pay their work that slave labor,
yeah.
like your Nikes, by the way, and your iPhones. That's essentially Chinese slave labor that are making that, and you're perfectly fine with that,
Yeah.
enslaving people in other countries to make your goods. And wouldn't you rather buy it from an American company?
Yeah.
And it will cost a little bit more in the short term,
Right.
but you put tariffs on the foreign products and then you give tax incentives to them to make it here. You give jobs to Americans who now make more money, who can afford products at a higher price, and then you drastically or completely reduce their income tax, and all of a sudden everything is better,
And the
right?
stock market, the economy goes higher and higher because of that. But think about that. What do we have to import? I mean, if
Very
we
little.
I mean, I mean, maybe your foreign cars, if you can't get Mercedes or
And a lot of those are assembled here anyway. Like Mercedes, and they're
yeah,
assembled in America. Most of them are like BMW and Audi. Like I think Audi and Volkswagen, most of them are actually assembled in Mexico. So it's not even some of the parts come from Germany, things like that. You can still, don't get me wrong, you can still get a BMW and a Volvo and an Audi actually shipped from Germany. That still is the case. But if you threaten tariffs on them and you reduce the cost of American made or built in America cars, now all of a sudden Mercedes and Audi and everybody else wants to actually build 100% their cars here in America because they get all sorts of tax benefits doing it here and not a 200% tariff in building it in Germany, everything's better.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a win-win to me.
It
Uh,
is a win-win. It
yeah.
is. And there might be momentary pain here and there, but I saw lots of people. I'd rather pay $10 for an egg at the grocery store than have Venezuelan gangs in my neighborhood. Thank you very much. I'm not that stupid, right?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
realized that 20 million illegal aliens cost me trillions of dollars of my tax money, right?
Mhm.
That I could get back and pay 10 cents more for an egg if that's what it comes to, right?
Yeah.
It's the fact that politicians think we're that superficial
Right.
that, oh boy, I have to pay more for my Corona and my guacamole for my Super Bowl. That's what they think of us,
Well,
that we're all complete idiots.
it's either that or they have to resist somehow, but they have hardly anything to go from to
Yeah, there's
show
no
that.
substantive issues
Yeah,
that they're
yeah,
winning on, so you make up crap, scare people.
yeah, we're gonna suffer because we're not gonna have as many fresh cut flower selections for Valentine's Day. I mean, if that's what your argument is, then I'd say we're on the
Yeah,
right.
we're on the right track. And if you're protesting Elon Musk finding fraud and not having us pay for fraud, if that makes you mad, we're winning the argument,
Yeah,
right? You're
absolutely.
you're losing. It's why you lost the last election. We're winning the argument, right?
Yeah,
And the other thing is, oh, they're going to release the P. Diddy list and the Epstein list. That's supposedly coming. That's going to cut across parties, right? There's going to be people from both political parties probably on that list. I don't care. I want evil, bad, manipulative fraudsters, whatever, rooted out. I don't care where they are,
absolutely. If they're all on the
right?
view, then they're all on the view.
Yeah, if they all happen to be hosts of The View, so be it, right? But literally, like, I want oversight on what we spend our money for. I want it to be something that's everybody can agree that it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
And if we can't agree it's worthwhile, we shouldn't be spending any money on it, right?
right, right.
And every organization that, people say, oh, Doge isn't in the Constitution. Well, neither was USAID. Neither is the Department of Education, which Trump is going to get rid of probably too, right? And it's just administrative overhead and an attempt to strong arm local public schools. That's all it is. It has never done any good. Scores are down or not improved, and we've spent billions, if not trillions of dollars over the last 50 years on it.
Yeah,
It's a complete boondoggle, right?
right. Yeah.
All right, so I got three questions for you, Brady,
Okay.
and maybe they're related to our topics that we've been having. This is our rewind question where we ask each other three questions. So this is relevant. What news story from your childhood do you now question,
Oh,
whether it's real or not? And
boy.
you, and your answer is, do you want the list or just the top 10? It's like,
No.
just give
I,
me one. Just give me one that you think you might question. Not that it is a yes or no, not that it's black or white, but you kind of question what the story has been about it.
yeah, boy. I mean, there's the obvious things with the Kennedy assassination. I think everybody now is knows that there's tremendous uh just
Yeah.
just dark yeah, evil
And we're going to
behind
find
that.
out. We're going to find out. That's going to get released by March 15th, I think is the deadline for all of that stuff to come out.
Yeah.
Um, it'll confirm what a lot of people think, I believe, and we'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah, certainly that.
Yeah. No, it's as a kid, you kind of are innocent and you're just kind of believing everything you're told and so I'm trying to think of what conspiracies or odd things happened. Um, boy, gosh, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a good one. I might need to think about chew on that one for a
Let me
while.
throw out a couple for you.
Yeah,
You mentioned Kennedy. I'm going to mention a couple that not everybody thinks about, but think about what we know now and what happened this past summer. How about the Reagan assassination attempt? He did it because he wanted to impress Jodie Foster. Yeah, that seems legit.
yeah, right.
It's like, seriously? Come on.
Yeah. You sure?
Knowing what we know now,
You sure that's your statement, sir?
yeah.
That's your defense?
I'm I'm guessing USAID paid him or somebody a lot of money to claim that that was the reason, and
Yeah,
it was an operation by a government organization that didn't particularly like Reagan. Um,
yeah,
seems like there's like a trend here. Let's see. Ford, there was assassination attempt. Reagan, there was assassination attempt. Trump, there's what do these guys have in common? Let's see. I don't know.
You know, it's funny. I never questioned where there's mass, we're going after, what was the term for the Iraqi invasion? Weapons of mass destruction. That's
Yeah,
what
right. Weapons of mass destruction.
I never thought, all right, let's see these weapons of mass destruction before we start flying in and bombing and killing and capturing.
Yeah,
Where are these weapons of mass destruction? And that just kind of, well, no, well,
yeah.
there wasn't. Sorry, we never found those weapons of mass destruction. And now I think now we know how the government kind of
Yeah.
does kind of think, yeah, that's something
I'm
that,
pretty sure most of the wars and military efforts over the last 60 years have all been fabricated,
yeah,
right? Sad to say, it sure feels like it. Somebody was behind that, wanting us to do it for whatever reason. Uh, we found out through USAID that's been the money source for these regime changes in foreign countries. Like, we launder this money into some foreign country. Uh, you know, the Ukraine. Even Zelensky said, "You guys told us you gave us $100 billion or whatever it was, and we only got like $1 billion." Right? So he even's like, "Wait a minute here. You said you gave us all that money. I never saw that." That's because it went to Biden's son, and then it got 10% for the big guy. Right? It's like it never made it there.
yeah.
It's just a front for laundering money, right? Like that's what that stuff is.
Oh man.
Um, what about the AIDS crisis? Like that now that guess who was at the top of that medical stuff? Fauci
Yeah,
was the guy associated with AIDS, and we know that that guy's full of crap.
yeah,
So there's another one, right? That's like if you revisit these events from the 60s, 70s, and 80s now, and in hindsight, knowing kind of what we know now about how the government works, it's like now it's kind of like all of it's fishy,
yeah,
right? Iran Contra, maybe even the space shuttle. I don't know.
yeah. Where
The
does it end?
hostages in Iran, did we pay Iran to take hostages?
Uh,
I, I wouldn't
yeah,
put it past somebody.
yeah. Knowing now the level of the depths of evil that,
Yeah, cheapers. And
man, we're,
all of it's fishy, and I don't know if we'll ever get back to kind of, opening it up. Certainly Martin Luther King's assassination and Bobby Kennedy's assassination, those are all as fishy as all get out, right?
yeah,
We still don't know anything about the guy who shot at Trump, right? We still don't know anything about that. They cremated him and hosed off the building,
yeah.
and we don't know anything,
The has
right? We literally don't know anything.
moved in right away and yeah, destroyed.
Jeepers. In
Yeah,
his house where his parents live, where are they? We've never seen an interview with them. They had no silverware in their house. We know that.
yeah,
I mean, come on. I don't believe one story of any of that coming out of any of that. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of it, right?
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so I didn't mean to get too political with that question, but it's just from when we were kids, we had a certain level of skepticism, but at the same time now I feel like we got gaslit
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
the media and we just were too naive at the time to recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, did you
Oh,
do Valentine's Day cards at school? That's my second question.
oh, yeah. Yes, we did. All the kids had to put their heads on the desk, and then
Yeah.
name, and then you wanted to be as quiet as possible. So the first
Yes.
year you
Oh
put
my gosh.
a box, or that'd be very embarrassing.
Everybody made a little box for their desk, and then the night before, you took those little cards that were like this big, and maybe you folded them, and they had, "Be my Valentine," and there's a bee, you know, and you had to be somewhat crafty with it because you didn't want to give one with hearts to one of your guy friends,
Right.
right? That would be gay. So you tried to find them, and it's like, be my friend, whatever. You're my friendly Valentine,
Yeah,
you
football,
know.
mud, and
Yeah, with the football motif or something, right? And then there was maybe a special girl that you thought was cute or something, and you gave her the one with the hearts and the flowers on it or something. But yeah, you'd write, with number two pencil on it, you'd scribble something in bad printing and go around and put it in everybody's box, and then you'd open them up and see who said what, and it was kind of sad because every once in a while there would be the weird kid, and then when they'd open up their box, it was about half full, right?
yeah,
They'd like the teacher would be like, "Wait, there's 25 kids in this. Why did Edie only get 10?"
right.
It's like it's
Oh,
like, oh my gosh.
that's funny.
I think somewhere in a box I've saved some of those just for nostalgia. I got to dig that out because it's pretty cute, right? Just
Yeah.
that you got these when you were kids. I don't think they do that anymore though, right? I don't think they
Oh,
still do that.
yeah, at least I don't see them in the stores like they used to be for
You'd
kids to.
buy a big box of them, right? Like box of 50 and just
Yeah,
do it. Elementary school, right?
yeah, yeah. Those were good times.
That was always fun. That was a big day in school was, Valentine's Day from that standpoint.
And you gave one to your teacher too, right?
Yeah, you gave one to the teacher, right? That was always like if you liked your teacher, it was maybe a
Right.
nice one. And if you didn't like your teacher, you just wrote your name. It's like you didn't even say anything. You just Evan. It's like, and it was one with like a hippo on it, or it was something, some kind of a backhanded insult to your teacher, right?
Right.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that was fun. I distinctly remember all of that, right, from childhood. That was an event. And I
Yeah.
just I don't think they do it. I think some schools still do the carnation thing. Like when you're in junior high and high school, you can buy for $1 from the booster club or something. You can buy a carnation and have it delivered to some girl or
Yeah.
boy in your class. I think they might still do that.
High school, we did that. I think.
And
Yeah.
the person would walk in with like five carnations and then hand them out, and everyone would, ooh, who's it from? It's like
Uh,
total embarrassment.
wasn't worth the embarrassment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. It's like I never wanted to get one because I was like the embarrassment wouldn't be worth it, right? So,
Uh,
and that leads me to my third question because innocent childhood stuff. Who did you have, or when was the first time you held a girl's hand?
oh man. Let's see. I was married in. Oh,
This is like my third year of marriage.
that's right. Living on the Amish.
Yeah, that's
No, I. Oh boy, I'm gonna say seventh grade. Yeah,
okay.
grade was when that started. Yeah.
I I was thinking about it, and like I know for sure in sixth grade, like there was a girl that I liked, and she lived a couple blocks from me, and we would actually meet up and go for a walk,
Hmm.
like around maybe even a mile or two around the neighborhood.
Hmm.
and we held hands.
Yeah.
And it was pretty, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. Like it was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
I think that was in sixth grade. Now there may have been, maybe there was somebody before that, but I don't have any distinctive memory of it. But I definitely remember holding hands with a girl. Her name was Chris, by the way, if she's out there. Held her hand and we walked around. I liked her. She was kind of sporty, in sixth grade, right?
Yeah.
And so we would go for pretty long walks and we would just talk and
Yeah.
would hold hands for part of the way. And that was kind of fun, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know the kids sixth and seventh grade. I don't think they do that now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
They
think so.
just Snapchat with each other. They don't actually,
Right. Yeah. Communicate through text and
yeah.
yeah, it's different world.
It's a different world. It's especially like uh some
Well,
friends of my son's told him that he's like, you're never gonna get a date unless you're on Snapchat. Like this is how you like you're at school with them all day long. Why
yeah,
don't you walk up to them and talk to them?
yeah.
Like,
You're
why do
literally
you have to
sitting next to her in fourth period
yes.
and you can't.
Why do you have to Snapchat her?
But I will say, people don't realize, people, our kids are later, they don't realize that feeling of gathering up the chutzpah
Oh gosh.
to walk over
Whew.
girl at her locker and say, "Hey, would you like to? Hey, I'd like to go out to, you want to hang out,
Yeah.
whatever." And then just hope, and as your heart pounds, there's
Yeah.
a certain amount of man up time to
Get
go and do
the
that because
fear.
down.
Yeah, it's a big matzo ball hanging out there, as Seinfeld said, right? It's like if you don't get the return of like, yeah, I'd love so to, it's like, oh man, that's like every guy dreads the turn down. It's like, oh, I just want to stay friends. You know, you're like,
Oh,
oh,
that's right.
takes you months to recover from that one, right? It's like, you know what you should do? Just go out with me once and then don't do it again, right? Like it just don't shoot me down on the first one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did it in a written note that I handed a girl in high school at some
Yeah.
point, right? Because that was easier. I didn't have to face her.
But
It was
then,
like, hey, do you want to go to a movie with me?
yeah, she's got the paper, and guess what? Now all her friends get
Oh
to.
yeah, that's the problem. It's like, oh, I heard you gave Denise. I
Yeah.
heard you told her you wanted to go out with her. It's
Yeah.
like, ah, great, thanks. It's
Yeah.
like I did it on a note so that no one would overhear it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's embarrassing. It's
Yeah.
what I think it's what kept kids from actually dating earlier because the guys were just afraid of it. And so a lot of times the girls became the aggressor because the guys were so afraid of it, right?
Well,
That was
one of-
my experience.
that was one of my questions for you is,
Okay. Yeah, shoot.
yeah, did you run reconnaissance? Which I definitely did that from time to time, but did you have a friend go up to,
Oh
do you
yeah.
have an instance where you did that so that ahead of time to dampen some of that pain?
Yeah, yeah. 100%. Like you wanted it to be kind of a soft landing, right? It's like so it's like could you ask her if she likes me or whatever. And then you got some feedback. Oh, yeah, she said she did or no, she's going with Brad or whatever. It's like, oh, okay.
Ex-name. Yeah.
I just remember like that I told my son this story too. It's like when I was a junior in high school, there was a freshman class, and we didn't have a very big high school, like 400 kids, so it wasn't very big, but they had a freshman class and lots of really cute girls in the freshman class. And one in particular, everybody thought she was the it girl kind of thing, had like Farrah Fawcett haircut and the whole works. And one of her friends came up to me and said, Denise Williams likes you. And I was like, get out of town. I was like, I was like Marty McFly, right? I was like, no way. Like that's like you're just messing with me, right? No, no, she said it. I'm like, why are you teasing me like this, right? Like this is there's no way this is true. And no, no, it's true. And so then I needed like verification. So I had to ask somebody else to ask.
Yeah,
Oh
there
yeah, yeah. She said it. She was talking to us. I heard it. She said it.
you got
So
two.
then it was so then, you're a stupid high school kid, so you're walking behind him to class or something and you trip him just to create some type of interaction, Oh, haha, sorry. It's like, oh yeah. Oh, oh," and then you start talking, and
Yeah,
hey, do you want to sit at the, lunch table, today or something, and then you talk and, hey, I was thinking of going to movie Saturday. You want to go? You know,
yeah,
that kind of a thing, right?
yeah, yeah. Still clunky back then in our day, but
Oh gosh.
man, you still had to throw that matzo ball out there.
Yeah,
You,
it still was like putting it out there.
you had to trust your contacts. Your resources were legit in
Oh
there.
my gosh, because if that really would have been a joke,
Yeah,
right? I was so nervous about it because I'm like, they're gonna hang me out to dry. I'm
yeah,
gonna say, hey, do you want to? And she's gonna look at me and go, who the heck are you? Right?
yeah.
Like
Oh
the
yeah,
only thing I knew I had going for me was I was older, right? And I had a car I could drive and stuff, so I had that advantage.
yeah,
Um, So, I thought maybe, she might think, oh, a free movie and a dinner out of it, right? Even if I don't like him, it's like maybe.
got a job. Yeah,
So,
it's funny.
yeah.
I just remembered one time though, real quick, where sitting there at the lunch table with the basketball team, and we're having lunch, and there's a girl at the other table, sitting over there, and they said, Brady, you like her, right? Yeah, you should go ask her out. Go ask her out. Let's go. We'll go with you. We'll go with you. Okay. So like six guys and I get up and we walk over and I sit down and I said, hi, I just wondered if we could talk. And I look and all those guys went back to the table.
Oh, see,
So I was
sucker.
sitting there by myself and they're all laughing. I can see them laughing and pointing like, ah, ha, ha. And so, yeah, words started to, yeah, evade me. But I remember that was a pretty clever trick those turkeys pulled.
Yeah, I was always afraid of that, right? That somebody's gonna like, build me up and tell me this big story, and then to find out, no, they were just gonna trying to make me look like an idiot, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
It's funny because like I've done this is later in life, 8, 10 years ago, Facebook reconnected with a lot of friends from high school, right? And I don't think I was a very confident person in high school.
Yeah.
Uh, at least my own feeling about myself wasn't, I didn't feel very confident. So I go back and I ask these people, what did you think about me in high school? What did you think of me, right? In high school? And lots of people, oh, you were a really cool guy, really friendly, everybody liked talking to you and stuff. And I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me that?
Yeah.
It's like, where were you with that stuff? And then, you come to find out with those people, they were insecure as well,
Oh, yeah.
right? And everybody's insecure, but you're trying to cover it.
Yeah.
And uh you think everybody's cooler than you think everybody's better than you're the outcast, you're the dork, you're the whatever. And it turns out, nope, just about everybody was in the same boat and you just never talked about it.
Yeah. And most people were little teenage narcissists that didn't really, nobody was really looking out for other people's feelings or trying to give them positive
Yeah,
feedback.
no, totally
You know?
true. And it's interesting because in talking to this girl that was this, you know, it girl, uh, on Facebook and stuff, 40 years later, whatever, having her tell me how insecure she was. She
Mm,
was totally insecure. She, thought she was dumb.
mm.
Just, all these things, and you're like, how is that possible? Everybody thought you were like the most beautiful girl in school. How would it have been possible for you to think that about yourself?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just crazy. And
That's
so you see your kids now in high school and stuff have not feel confident and not feel totally secure about themselves and stuff. And just to tell them, everyone else around you feels exactly the same way you do,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So, don't worry about it.
And that's why social media can be so dangerous is, if
Yeah.
you get into that insecurity, people don't respond, and all of a sudden you feel like,
I
you're,
only got 10 likes on my recent photograph. Nobody likes me, right? It's like, sheesh.
yeah, I know. It's,
Oof.
uh, well,
Anyway, so what, you got any more questions for me?
yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
So hated sports teams when you were a kid,
Oh
what
gosh.
teams across anything, baseball, football, basketball, what?
I'm pretty sure we share one. You being a Detroit Lions fan and me being a Minnesota Vikings fan, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we share one. Uh, hated the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Didn't like them when I was like in elementary school, and then I went to junior high, and we moved to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which for those of you who don't know is Western Wisconsin. So it was 50-50. You're only 90 minutes from Minneapolis, right? So a
Mm.
lot of people are originally from the Twin Cities. So about 50% Vikings fan. The other 50% are Green Bay Packer fans. And I learned something there. Minnesota Viking fans are much better people than Green Bay Packer fans. I'm sorry. I experienced it. We're way better people. You can say that's not true, whatever. This is my personal experience. Green Bay Packer fans were terrible.
Yeah.
I didn't like uh, the Chicago Bears either. Um, and then I met Chicago Bear fans when I was in college, and they weren't great, but they were better than Packer fans,
Yeah.
right? And Detroit fans, because sorry, you guys were never good when I
No.
was that age. So they didn't bother me at all,
Yeah.
right? I didn't like the Steelers because they beat the Vikings in a Super Bowl, and I didn't like the Cowboys because they had the famous offensive pass interference that wasn't called to win a NFC Championship game in the 70s. So I didn't like them.
Yeah.
Baseball, I was a Twins fan, but I didn't really care about other teams. Basketball, there was no team in Minnesota, so I was, I, it wasn't a big deal to me. Um, I was definitely a North Stars fan, and I didn't like the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So, but I don't remember not liking any other team.
Yeah.
But I think from that standpoint, as a Minnesota Gopher fan, I didn't like the Badgers, I
Okay.
guess. That's what I can remember of those times. Moving to Wisconsin was really hard because this is where the teams that I hate live.
Right.
And I still didn't like the Badgers, and I like the Packers even less because I met their fans. Um, and then but I did become a Milwaukee Bucks fan since Minnesota didn't have a team and I wasn't really a Bulls fan or anything. So I kind of fell into becoming a Milwaukee's Bucks fan. And they were actually pretty good in the early 80s, right? They were in conference championship series a lot
Hmm.
in the early 80s, and they had a great team.
Yeah.
So I was kind of them. But yeah, I mean, and my family knows like I want the Packers to lose every game, even if it would mean something positive for my team. I'd rather have it be a negative for my team and have them lose.
Keep the
That's just the
pain.
way it is. It's
Okay.
just I want them to experience pain. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's re
And it's like, and I don't care if you don't like that, right? I really don't. I don't care if anybody says that's mean and they're not all like that. And I don't care. That's how I feel. And I'm entitled to my feelings, and too bad. And that's a Gen X way of viewing the world, too. It's like, suck on it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I have family members who are Packer fans for some stupid reason. And I have friends from junior high that are, and I managed to sort of get along with them, but I'm not going to talk about sports with them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Well, my last question was, and we'll see if you can answer this one correctly. I think you probably will. Hulk Hogan credits his career to three wrestlers. He named three wrestlers that I saw. He said he owes his career to these three
Oh
wrestlers.
boy.
See
Who
if you
are they?
know who they are. Yeah,
Uh, Andre the Giant,
that was one. Yeah.
uh, Randy Macho Man Savage.
That was two. You got one more. This one's a little tough.
Oh man. This is gonna be tough now. Um, the last one's I don't know. Ric Flair.
That was one of them, but there was actually one more.
Okay.
There was four. Rick,
Jesse the Body Ventura.
no, no, it wasn't him, but you're close. Uh, Roddy Piper, if you
Oh,
remember.
Roddy Piper. Yep. That makes total sense, right? We talked about professional wrestling on a previous podcast. You might want to reference that one, but it
Yeah,
was for, especially for Gen X boys,
yeah,
this was entertainment,
yeah.
right? It was
Uh,
very entertaining.
they even had a Saturday morning cartoon with the
Yeah,
rest.
they did. I remember that. It was a little past my time, but I remember that it was on there. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I just saw, and I don't follow him on X, but it showed up in my feed. It was a Hulk Hogan post today, and I just thought I would share it with you because it was pretty interesting. This is Hulk Hogan now, right? This is incredible Hulk Hogan. This was his post. This is from 12 hours ago today. He said, "Every day I'm reminded that God is good, always thankful." Hulk Hogan. That's
Wow.
pretty cool,
Yeah,
right? I gotta say, that's pretty cool from the Hulkster. The
yeah,
guy's got to be what, 70?
yeah, yeah,
He's got to be, right? Um, because he was wrestling in the early 80s, I think,
yeah. Seven,
from my recollection.
nice long age for wrestlers. That's for sure.
Uh,
They don't tend to live very
yeah.
long.
No, he was born in 53. He is 71.
Wow.
And just for those of you who don't know, his real name is Terry. Terry Bollea is his real name. Terry Gene Bollea, otherwise known as Hulk Hogan. And I remember when he first came in, he was Incredible Hulk Hogan because Incredible Hulk was the
Oh,
cartoon and he was the Incredible Hulk Hogan. And then he dropped Incredible at some point, but he was born in 1953.
hmm.
So he is a baby boomer.
Yeah.
The Hulkster's a baby boomer. So one of these times we got to have a baby boomer on the show, Brady, to talk about the differences between us and them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and see if there's things that we can discover. My sister is a baby boomer, although, yeah, she's towards the end of the baby boom thing. She's kind of in that middle ground where we probably would share things in common, but I think we need to find somebody born in like 55 or something in that range,
Yeah.
perhaps, and just see what the differences are, and then get somebody who's a millennial or a Gen Zer and
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
have a discussion about childhood stuff and see where there's differences, right?
Definitely.
Um, I mean, you and I are separated by 10-ish years, I think, something like that. 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's small differences in our childhood experiences, but not a lot,
Right.
right? Not a lot. Very similar huffy bikes and being gone all day and cartoons and professional wrestling. And
Yeah.
these are the main things of my childhood. Now, one last thing before we wrap it up, our producer's giving us the high sign here.
That's right.
Um, that I was thinking about was I watched just the other night, I watched Stand By Me. Uh, that classic movie,
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss and those all those kids who are dead in
Yeah.
real life. No. Uh, I think only one of them is. I was surprised. I thought two of them were, but Will Wheaton is still alive. I
Oh,
thought maybe he had died too, but I guess he's still alive.
hmm.
Corey Feldman, the fat kid is now married to Rebecca Romaine, so he definitely got over on all of us for that. It's like that dude scored. How did he manage that? The fat kid, right? It's like, um, it's a very interesting movie because they're baby boomers, right? So the childhood part of the movie takes place in the late 50s, I think. So they're baby boomers. They're 12. But the final line of the movie is Richard Dreyfuss typing the book that becomes the movie sort of thing, right? This is the plot to the whole thing. He's reflecting on his life as a 12-year-old and this whole story, which is actually based on a Stephen King book. Um, and he writes something like, I never again in my life had friends like I had when I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
And then his son came in with his friend and said something to them. And he's like, yeah, I'll be right out. And then he paused and he looked at the last line and he wrote, Jesus, does anyone? And that's the end of the book.
Hmm.
And I was when I saw that, I'm like, that's very true. I think also for Gen Xers. The
Yeah,
friends that you had 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, you never quite have friends like that the rest of your life. And I don't know why.
yeah,
It's just that special time, especially for guys,
yeah.
where you can talk about anything and everything and tease each other nonstop. That's what's funny in the movie. They call each other names in the movie, and you know, that's what your mother said, and blah blah blah. Just making mom jokes and stuff constantly. That is all very like it was for me as a kid. And those buddies that I had at that age, there's never been anybody quite like that
Yeah,
ever again. So I think the movie nails that part of childhood.
yeah, yeah,
But just them walking on the railroad tracks, the whole thing. I mean, we've talked about that. That's exactly what we did, right?
yeah. And it's all before life starts taking off and girls get involved and all that. So it's such a simple time, and yeah, it's just a wonderful time. Great memories.
Yeah, great. Just, you know, just a special time. And it's kind of nice that somebody made a movie about that time period in kids' lives and stuff because it's really special, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I love that movie. The sad part of it is there's a lot of swearing in it, so it's not great to watch with your 10-year-old. So, but I think I was thinking about it. Yeah, there's swearing in it and everything else, but I think it might be a good movie now for a 16 or 17-year-old to watch. I think they could probably watch that, and I think they would relate to parts of that,
Yeah.
right? But they'd also be amazed at how independent these kids could just go on a 2-day trek and no one cared, right? Like it was no big deal. And they had a gun and they saw a dead body, and it's just like, oh my gosh. All
Yeah.
right. Hey, everybody, remember to hit like and subscribe on YouTube. You can watch us on Spotify. That's my personal preference. I love Spotify because the stuff doesn't stop playing when you switch apps. That's what I like most about it. You can interact with us on X or Instagram. You can listen to us in the car on Amazon Music or iHeartRadio. There's apps. Everybody's got those apps in their car, right? You can listen to our episodes on there. And just announcing too, Brady, this week, we just signed a deal with UHF Channel 75 in Fort Dodge, Iowa.
All
So
right. We're
great to
done.
have them.
Yeah.
Great to have them in there. And maybe we'll get some local cable access channel to add us as well.
Yeah.
So for Brady and myself, we thank you for tuning in, and we want you, and with everything going on in the world and how the world is changing every minute, we want you to have fun, but we want you to be home before the streetlights come on. All right.
All right.
We'll see you next time, Brady. Take care.
All
See you
right.
Sunday for the Super Bowl.
right.
All
Go eat.
right. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Take care.
Bye
We'll
bye.
talk to you.